All right, so hello everybody again. Welcome back to another World History Screencast. Today's topic is the fall of Rome. And our time period we're talking about here is approximately 200 to 500 CE. All right. Now, where we've kind of left off, or if you've discussed the Roman Empire in your classes, you know it's one of the largest as well as most successful empires of the ancient world. So before the collapse of Rome, I just wanted to show this map here that kind of compares the territory of it with the present-day United States. You can see the territory of the Roman Empire stretched from beyond the east coast of the U.S. all the way over into the Pacific Ocean, if you were to take their map and compare it with the United States. So the Roman Empire, very, very large, but towards the end of the 100s, or the 2nd century AD, or CE, the Roman Empire begins to collapse. So we're going to take a look at some reasons why that happens. Our first reason here is weak leadership and military decay. All right, so decay, you can think about if you have tooth decay, that means your white enamel on your teeth is starting to disappear, maybe turn into some brown funkiness. So decay means either crumbling or falling apart. So our first reason for the fall of Rome, weak leadership and military decay. What do I mean? So this occurred between 200 and 400 CE approximately. Now at this time Rome did not have a single well-supported leader in power after their last emperor died in 180 AD. So they have a great emperor and he dies in 180 and there's a bunch of people left fighting for power. Nobody is completely supported by all the people. There's groups that support one leader, other people support others, and so on. Second, many military leaders fought for the position. So these different leaders who are left, each with their own little bit of support, they end up fighting each other in order to gain the position of emperor. And so as a result, Rome is in a period of civil war, where people from the empire are fighting other people from the empire. At the same time, barbarian tribes from regions outside of the Roman Empire's borders, so North Europe particularly, would come in and continuously raided Roman borders. So as a result, there's all this fighting going on. And these constant fights depleted, or in other words, destroyed or reduced Rome's number of soldiers, weapons, and equipment. Further, many soldiers became frustrated and believed the empire was asking them to put their lives on the line way too often. Just got done fighting the barbarians, now my leader wants me to fight against other Roman soldiers, and back and forth and back and forth. As a result, many people in the military quit or deserted. In other words, just ran away. All right. So we have two problems here. Weak leadership, there's not a single leader in Rome, and then all this fighting causes the military of Rome to decay. Next, we have an economic crisis of the 3rd century. All right, so economic crisis of the 3rd century. The 3rd century is actually going to be between the years 200 and 300 CE. So economic crisis occurs due to trade drying up. And what I mean by that is that barbarian raids, so these barbarians from the north of Europe coming into the Roman territories and raiding and fighting and pillaging, these throw or injure or harm Roman trade routes. Furthermore, bands of pirates terrorize sea trade routes. Alright, so then as Rome tries to raise a bigger and bigger army to fight the barbarians and pirates, they keep having to spend their money on this. So their wealth was drained. In order to have an army, you have to pay for it. In order to have soldiers, you have to train them, etc. So they're losing money. Then another problem that occurs is that Roman leaders tried to create or print money in order to solve this problem. So the money that they minted, which it means create or print, used copper and lead in place of silver. After a while, though, people caught on and realized the coins that the Roman government was printing were not as valuable and refused to accept it. So now you've got all this money being made and put into circulation or use, but it's not worth anything. And that causes another problem known as inflation. Inflation is a dramatic rise in prices due to a decrease in the value of money. So if your dollar you have in your pocket right now was not worth what we think of as a dollar. Let's say that $1 was worth a penny. You would need lots and lots and lots of dollars just to buy something simple like a loaf of bread. The next thing you know, all things that you need to spend money on cost way, way, way more than they do now. We call that inflation. All right, so we've got weak leadership and military decay, and now an economic crisis. Further, I've mentioned barbarian invasions so far. That's another reason why the Roman Empire fell. Of the barbarian invasions, the stresses of barbarians raiding Roman trade routes and invading across the borders became too much over time. Between the years 350 and 476 CE, many tribes of Germanic barbarians, so northern Europe, essentially attacked Rome. In 476 CE, the city of Rome was taken over by barbarian tribes, and the emperor, who was in charge at that time, was overthrown. So the Roman military just could not hold off these barbarians anymore, and eventually the barbarians take over. Now, what the Romans had tried to do prior to the barbarian takeover, so we're going back in time a little bit, back in around 284 CE, they had divided the empire. So trying to avoid chaos and collapse, the empire was divided. So the emperor at that time, whose name was Diocletian, divided the Roman Empire into two, an Eastern Empire and a Western Empire. He also passed many reforms to try and keep the empire prosperous. Over time, however, only the Eastern Empire really benefited from these reforms. As a result, or as an example, the capital of the Roman Empire shifted from Rome at one point to a city in the Eastern Empire known as Constantinople, which is present-day Istanbul in Turkey. But so the focus of these reforms really benefited the East more than the West. So as a result, the Eastern Empire continues on, and really the Western half is the one that breaks up into different kingdoms. And when we talked about the barbarian invasions, we're talking about these barbarians taking over what would become the Western Roman Empire. All right, so the Western Empire collapses as a result of this and splits into many different kingdoms. Some of these you'll recognize the names of, become countries of Western Europe today, like France and Spain, and what eventually will become Germany much later in history. So that pretty much wraps it up here for the fall of Rome. Hope you enjoyed the screencast.